if you're thinking about, let's say, you had a personal experience with your white boss that he treated you a certain way, you're going to go back in your memory with that particular thing, and you're going to, just like a rewinding tape of a cassette or a visual cassette, and you're going to undo in your mind. You're going to sit down, close your eyes, think about everything about see the entire scene exactly the way it was as much as possible, and rewind or reverse those the events in that proper reverse sequence. Just like forward, it happened a certain way, you're in a certain sequence. When you're reversing it, you're reversing it in that same proper sequence as to totally reverse what was done. Then you're going to make sure you sit down. It's almost like a meditation. As long as it takes to do this, you just sit with it, and you sit down and you pay attention to how it's impacting your mind, your body, your feelings, your emotions. Let it take you over, and let it impact your feelings. Let it impact your feelings. And after you reversed it backwards, you allow yourself to feel how that makes you feel. It should make you feel at least a relief. Then what you're going to do is you're going to visualize that boss or whoever it is in whatever scenario in a more positive light, in a more positive in the very scene, in a very positive way. So if he did something horrible to you, after you reversed it, and after you allowed the positive effects of you reversing it to penetrate your being, now you're in a more lighter, at least a more relieved space. So now you're going to visualize him in a more positive way. You are going to visualize him in a more pleasant way. See him doing good things towards you. See him smiling with you. See him in the light that you want your ideal boss to exist in. You want your boss to be a nice boss, a pleasant, polite boss, a fair boss, a boss that seems unbiased, a boss that is very kind, and somebody you could just respect as a figure that you see as respectful, and not because you're afraid of him. See him in a very nice, benevolent kind of a way, and you also sit with that. And you sit with that and let that impact you, and it should start in a more pleasant way. You see, the reversing of the actual event is it takes you into a more neutral space where you're neither pissed or happy. So after that, you go into that neutral space. You're gonna have to bring up the vibration of that actual memory. Or your personal vibration regarding this person. So you're going to move from a place of neutral relieved place to a more positive, blissful place now. So this is what you're doing with this. You're replacing the bad memory of this person with a good memory. So now you're seeing him as nice, he's being nice to you, saying nice, kind things to you in that very scene. So you reverse the scene, and now you're recreating the scene, you see. So after you reverse it, you recreate it, and now you allow it to impact you, and you sit with that feeling as long as you feel confident in knowing that it has left some it has shifted your perception of that person and shift your perception of that actual event and that actual scene to some degree. I would suggest you sit with it as long as it makes you feel good, and you could say, well, I don't think this is going to bother me anymore. But if you don't have the time, or for whatever reason, you could just sit with it until you feel confident and know that it has made you feel better, at least better. So you could continue to do this process with this particular event as much as you want until you are confident that it is totally does not bother you anymore and it doesn't impact your emotions anymore. So you could go back the next day or whatever time you have time to deal with that same issue or different issues. So you use the same process to deal with any issue in your life, but in this video I'm talking about racism. So you go and you do it. Go think about all the racial discrimination you've been through and reprogram the whole scenario. This should affect you in a very positive way, and it will help you to heal your emotions and how you feel about racism. You don't feel that much of a victim anymore, and you don't attract you don't continue to attract similar situations like that where you're being discriminated against or you're being abused or being put down by somebody of another race. Also, we want to do this with as a collective people, black people, and like again, any people could do this with any situation in their lives or in history. So now we're talking about history now and how these known events throughout history like slavery and Jim Crow has affected the black community. So each individual do this. You could do this as an individual, you do this in a group, or in a group. So what you'll do is you'll sit down and you think any any event throughout history like Jim Crow and slavery, and even more recent events like Rodney King situation, the Trayvon Martin, the Charleston shooting, all these things. Also, those little random events throughout history that happened, like Rosa Parks, the alligator bait, that's in slavery, Emmett Till, anyone that you choose. I say you do all of them that you remember, because each one of these memories are affecting the way you see the world, the way you see your life, and the way you see white people and people around you, and the way you view them. It's going to affect the way you feel about yourself. And again, you are not doing it for them, you are doing it for yourself. So when you learn to do these things, you learn to forgive. When you learn to forgive, you're healing yourself. You're healing yourself from unforgiveness. You're healing yourself from victimhood. You're healing yourself from a slave mentality and everything else that affected you negatively from slavery to present day. So again, you think about your slavery is slavery, but for each individual it's gonna look different. So whatever images you have in your head, whatever repeated thoughts that come to you when you think about slavery, you go into those very thoughts, and just like you did with the individual scenario, you reverse each and every one of those thought patterns. You reverse those situations in this very sequence that it moved forward in the very exact sequence that it moved forward in. So you're reversing it backwards. After you sit with it again and let it impact you, you are going to recreate the whole scenario. So if your personal memory or thoughts of slavery, it's not really a physical memory because you weren't really there physically, but your personal thoughts of slavery, it's going to be different for everyone.